If there was ever a concept with the entire deck stacked against it, this has to be it. No, get out of here. This is not your video. It's hers. Just like with the other two mercenaries being the Act 5 mercenary, followed shortly after by the Act 2 mercenary, I'm going to go into depth on how I was able to get done before I show the gameplay. So if any of you guys are here for just that reason, make sure to check down in the description below. There are going to be timestamps that you can go click on to be able to skip all the explanation and get right into the run. So this leaves the question, was she actually able to solo the Ubers just like the Act 5 mercenary and the Act 2 mercenary prior to her?
Yes and no.
The reason I mention this is because of what I define as the concept for how the mercenaries are able to solo the Ubers, something I mentioned in the last video.
Flashback.
This means that they take the place of my character, in this case, the Barbarian. The mercenary would be dealing all of the damage while I'm a walking stat stick for auras and chance to cast when struck.
End of flashback.
And I'm wanting to be completely transparent with you so that way you guys don't feel like this is a scam or clickbait. I'm not DK Oldies.
Is DK Oldies a scam? No. We only sell authentic products and back every item we sell with our 120-day warranty.
There's a problem here. We gotta fix this.
Justin, what can we do to stop this going forward?
Add another check to stop this from happening to anybody else.
So everything's going to get an additional check before it gets shipped out? I think that sounds great.
We try to do the best we can, but sometimes mistakes will happen. We're always looking for ways to solve the customer's issue and then find a way to make sure it'll never happen again. Here at DK Oldies, we aim to provide a convenient place for you to scratch that nostalgia itch with peace of mind.
Unfortunately, unlike how the Act 5 mercenary and the Act 2 mercenary, I was able to show the entire run of them being able to get Torch within a reasonable amount of time. This run is more on the concept of the one item summon necromancer going through and getting the Torch. Looking at the unedited run, only one kit here to show the different sections, both prior and in Uber Tristram. This is how long it took for the mini Ubers. However, this is how long Uber Tristram took, so I'm not going to subject you to any of that. As always, I wanted to ask one of my favorite Diablo 2 content creators, being Seer, on what his thoughts are on a run like this in one of his live streams. Big shout out to Big No for shouting me out during the live stream, but Seer ended up being as stumped on the concept as I originally was.
I kept my promise from last stream, editing now, Act 2 Merc Solos Uber. Ooh, did you do it? Actually, don't spoil it, I don't want to see for myself. But I have a really stupid question. How far into Ubers could Act 1 Merc live, and what gear for her or, oh man, alright. Act 1 Mercenary Solo Ubers? I think that is hard to even imagine, because, if you're not helping, I don't know if she can prevent Monster Heal with anything. The best thing... Boy, alright, I'm gonna think about this. Alright, I'll think about this for a second. See, I don't think you can give her the Fanaticism bow. That's not enough.
Thankfully, with the patch 2.6 PTR going on, I had the chance to test some ideas out in hopes that something would work to be able to make this happen. When I was doing the PTR testing, the reason I tested out 3 different bows is because I wanted to find out the best ideal combo for both speed, damage, both in being elemental as the Act 1 rogues have elemental damage natively to them, but also physical damage as well, to see what will work best in Uber Tristram. I tested 3 setups against Diablo Clone. Faith Bow with dual Last Wish, then Mist Bow with dual Beasts, then I accidentally used Hustle without swapping back to any other bow. All 3 were able to get the job done. However, even with testing all 3 setups out, I honestly couldn't figure out what would be the most ideal combo of the 3 to be able to make it happen during the run. So I just picked one of the bows at random and hoped for the best. And whenever she either couldn't continue on, or kept running into a specific issue, I tried to adjust accordingly. I originally tried this run with the Faith Merc and dual wielding Last Wish, as using 2 Last Wishes paired together gave a level 34 Might aura, and the level 12 Fanaticism aura was great to pair with the Burst of Speed proc that she'd be getting when pre-buffing Hustle. But she still was unfortunately lacking when it came to Open Wounds and Crushing Blow, as the bows unfortunately didn't do enough damage before the Ubers would start to regenerate their health back. And with this setup, the only source of Open Wounds and Crushing Blow were from the Helm and Armor, but weren't high enough paired together on their own. I gave Mist another go as it seemed to work best against Diablo Clone, but even that fell short, as the Ubers in Tristram, along with their minions, were much more difficult to handle compared to Diablo Clone, who is by himself with very little outside distractions to deal with. So I decided to throw caution to the wind. It did something similar with how Cooley had his Uber Smiter back in Pluggy, go ahead and collect the torch to be able to set the world record at the time, and decided to throw safety out the window to be able to favor more overall damage.
He suggested that we throw safety out the window with our Smiter build in favor of a very high risk, high damage setup. We would do considerably more damage, but we would give up our lifeline against these high level end game bosses. Dangerous to say the least. But if we were gonna break the record, we had to take some risks.
That's how I turned all of these bows down for this one.
What? Oh, hell no!
This bow adds 15% IAS or increased attack speed, 40% enhanced damage, 40% crushing blow, 20% deadly strike, and 50% chance of open wounds. To pair with the rest of her gear, being G-Face and Duress, to give her 30% IAS, as G-Face is socketed with an IAS jewel to pair with the one in the bow, 70% faster hit recovery, 83% chance of open wounds, 90% chance of crushing blow, and 35% chance of deadly strike. I'm going to address the crushing blow in a little bit, as it's important to understand why this run was as difficult as it was. Additionally, where she lacked in speed is where the main pre-buff for this build comes into play. Now, my goal was to use Hustle, as it ended up being a great pre-buff build. However, I didn't really get a chance to test the run to completion with going through the minis all the way through Uber Tristram with the Hustle rune word as it was, because I was going on a week-long vacation, and by the time I got home, the PTR was then closed. To be clear, this is how Hustle was when I left to go on vacation. Then the patch notes came out when I got back, and this is what they ended up doing to it. So the level 9 burst speed proc is now level 1. For this run, that's quite the drastic change that could make or break the success of this concept. However, because she's really going to be lacking in speed, especially if she ended up getting chilled such as fighting Duriel, I decided to just say f it, and I'm still going to be pre-buffing with this travesty, because any boost in speed that she can get is going to be welcome. Earlier I mentioned that some of the rules that I set out for the prior 2 runs are going to be disregarded for this particular setup. However, before we go into the differences, I want to go over the similarities with how this one worked compared to the Act 5 and the Act 2 Mercenary. For the first point, where this run would be similar with the Act 5 Mercenary and the Act 2 Mercenary would need to have a teleporting barbarian using Enigma, a teleport charge staff, or a teleport charge amulet, to name a few examples. The second point is that the mercenaries are not autonomous, meaning that I have to guide them through each of the areas to be able to find the Ubers for them to kill. Granted, they can move on screen on their own and a little bit off screen if they end up getting aggroed. However, they're never going to wander any farther than that on their own. They also cannot give themselves potions or to be able to provide crowd control that is very needed like a playable character would. So I'm going to be providing that for them as well. The third and last point is that the mercenary deals 100% of the damage aside from chance to cast procs that you'd have on your gear. However, it wouldn't be as mandatory for the Act 2 and the Act 5 mercenary to be able to use. Looking over the skill trees from a barbarian, the skills I'm going to be using are the same concept as before. Trying to buff the mercenary however possible to give them as much of an advantage as possible when it comes to fighting the Ubers, as well as to be able to provide crowd control to be able to give them more of a one-on-one with themselves and the Uber without interference of the minions. And lastly, I'm going to be prioritizing my own survivability, because if she ends up dying, I can easily go ahead and revive her, rebuff her, and rejoin the fight. However, if I end up dying, so does she. And the ability to be able to retrieve my corpse is going to be very unlikely, especially because she's going to be very dependent on my gear to be able to give her as much of a damage boost as possible to be able to kill the Ubers. So I need to be able to prioritize my own survivability over hers. However, this is where the similarities end and the differences begin. And wow, are there some drastic ones for this concept. I previously stated that I only wanted to use one rune word that has an aura instead of dual wielding the same rune word, as I didn't want to make the concept of completing this run too easy to do.
Flashback.
Also, I wanted to have fun with testing out what would be the bare minimum needed to be able to get the Act 2 mercenary to go through the Uber process by himself. Again, limiting the use of one of each rune word to be able to not make this just too easy for him, if that's even possible to consider.
End of flashback.
Looking over my gear, I had to dual wield Beast as I need her to shoot arrows as fast and often as possible, as again, so much is stacked against her, and the best chance of success for her is to be able to fire as fast as she can, as this is going to help to increase the odds of her arrows hitting more frequently. Another item I used was Flickering Flame, as I wanted to ensure, with using the Resist Fire aura, that taking fire damage wouldn't be much of an issue, especially with Diablo's Lightning Hose being half fire damage. But also the Pit Lords and Dark Lords deal fire damage as well, especially Firewall and Meteor. Additionally, I had Marrowwalks for the Bone Prison charges, as I know that she wants to always stay at a distance for whoever she's fighting. And this was an absolute last resort idea in case she wouldn't stay still and the Ubers would regenerate too much of their health back after knocking it down quite far. Lastly, anything in the inventory that wasn't necessary was removed to be able to have full rejuves ready to be used, even having them on my cube to be able to allow myself to stay in the fights with my mercenary as long as possible without having to go back into town. One of the biggest differences with this mercenary compared to the Act 5 and the Act 2 mercenaries, with their Crushing Blow, since they were melee mercenaries, worked at an effective rate of 12.5% of the current health of the Ubers when hit, and with each hit had a diminishing return because it was still working off a percentage, not flat damage. Hence why I still needed weapons with a good amount of base damage. However, with ranged attacks, the Crushing Blow's effectiveness is reduced by half, making it 6.25% of the current health of the Ubers when hit, and again, with each hit having a diminishing return. So in short, she already doesn't have crazy base damage, as her weapon's going to focus more on adding Crushing Blow and Open Wounds, and the Hustle rune word that I was going to pre-buff with prior, unfortunately got a very drastic buff. For all of you guys that have been saying the Boazon needs a very needed buff in this game,
I feel you.
But never fear, as I considered additional pre-buffs to be able to aid her when it comes to her fight, using Demon Limb for the enchant charge to be able to get better attack rating, as well as Fortitude for the chilling armor proc. And for pre-buffing myself, I used Dual Last Wish to be able to get the Fade proc for the physical damage reduction boost, as my resistances were already good as they were, but any help reducing damage being taken is welcome with this setup. Last for the differences, I tried to take the brunt of the damage from the Ubers if I could, as I was taking the place of what the Act 5 Mercenary would do, being very aggressive and directly in the Ubers' faces, and try to allow the Mercenary to just stay back and deal damage. Didn't always work out, but that was the plan going into this, if I can actually make it happen. Just like with the last two Mercenaries, we were acting as our Merc's Merc, using any and all potential gear slots on our character to give them whatever advantage they need to be able to complete their run. Just as we have them do to support us with giving them items with auras, such as Insight for the Meditation Aura, Infinity for the Conviction Aura, or Plague for the Cleansing Aura, to name a few. And that's not cheating in normal gameplay, so I wouldn't consider it here as we're reversing the role with our Mercenary. Some might be very critical of this, however, do understand that this is a very extreme run concept with very extreme measures needed to be able to make it happen. And the most that I'm trying to put out with these projects is that the Act Mercenaries, if set up properly, have the ability to be able to take on some of the hardest bosses in this game. And the fun part is, the Act Mercenaries being not autonomous, being able to solo the Ubers, is an oxymoron. Something that I noticed is that Bale would sometimes favor targeting me instead of her if dual wielding Beast, since my throw was active on my left click. Could be complete coincidence. Regardless, I wanted to use that to my advantage. So on switch, I had Brand for the chance to cast Amplified Damage when struck, even if Deadly Strike procs. This would still help to supplement the damage for the last of the Uber's health going down once Crushing Blow's diminishing return really kicked in. So to put it simply, use Battle Orders and Shout, pre-buff Hustle and Fortitude at the same time to be able to get her Burst of Speed and Chilling Armor procs, all while undual wielding Last Wish for the Fade procs, then switch back to her main bow and Duress, and lastly, use Demon Limb for the increased attack rating. As with all the pre-buffs, that one especially needs to stay active the longest to be able to ensure better chances of her arrows actually hitting. From there, try to get the Uber's attention and proc amp damage, and allow the Mercenary to be able to kill the Ubers, hopefully without her dying in the process. And to set this run up, all the stash pages, even the personal stash, all were completely full of full rejuves, as this was mandatory and didn't know just how much would be used to get this done. From this point on, I'm only going to be showing the fights with the Uber starting at full health, none of it's going to be sped up, and the only thing that's going to be trimmed out is getting to and from each one of the Ubers to be able to save some time. Hope you guys enjoy. First one I wanted to go to was Lilith. As with the mini Ubers, she would give me the hardest fight. I'm quite used to my character's health being so low and only using a rejuve at the last moment. I've learned to time it just right to try to save my rejuves and not just waste them, as the majority of them would still be needed once inside Uber Tristram.
Impossible.
Lilith's physical resistance was already low, so with proccing Amplified Damage, she was able to go down much quicker than I expected, and getting her out of the way first was good peace of mind, as Iswell and Duriel wouldn't be much of an issue by comparison. Luckily, Iswell was alone in his little spot in the back of the map, and he was the smoothest to handle of all the mini Ubers, as she just stayed back far enough to not be affected by Iswell, but still far enough away from the other minions on the other platform to not aggro their attention onto her. Despite that some of her procs faded away, she still took him down quite easily. Much like Iswell, Duriel's fight was quite smooth, and she again stayed just out of range of his Holy Freeze to keep firing fast and often, even without the Burst of Speed proc. I took my time to proc and damage again to see the damage difference when his health was getting close to the end, and even without it, I was quite surprised at how well she was doing. But once amplified damage was procced again, it didn't take too long before he went down to be able to wrap up the mini Ubers. Now in Tristram, the plan was to deal with Mephisto last, as he was the hardest, so I wanted to go after Bale or Diablo first, and it was all dependent on whoever I could drag away first. After over an hour of unsuccessful attempts at killing Bale, as he followed me more than Diablo initially did, I switched my focus to Diablo. And once I got him by himself and could scatter most of his minions around him, she slowly, but steadily, started knocking down his health. What intrigued me about fighting him, she seemed to literally be right in front of him, even where the ground came up to spawn minions. For quite a bit of the fight, she went untouched. His lightning hose, melee attacks, Armageddon, and even a few minions that refused to scatter when I held them away didn't affect her. Not complaining, but it was great to see her just whittling down his health. And the times that she was attacked, she never really seemed to be in danger for very long before he would then go back to focusing on me. I ended up dragging Bale to the top left corner of the map and trying to get the mercenary and I trapped in the corner for Bale to stand in front of us. forcing the mercenary to stay still and to just focus on shooting at him. And it worked, and it seemed to actually be at her benefit, as he wasn't really damaging her, but she was damaging him. As mentioned earlier, the Uber seemed to focus on me when I dual-wielded beasts, but once I switched to Brand for the amplified damage proc, they would all focus back on her. After constant attempts of her either moving around to not attack and his health going back up, or he would teleport to move around to allow her to get some distance from him, I didn't want to risk any more setbacks with switching weapons if it was simply Bale by himself, unless for a second or two to try to get him to hit me once when seeing his melee animation start, but if his festering appendages spawned and I could get hit by them, I'd switch to Brand, proc amplified damage, and then immediately switch back to dual beast to keep her IAS up. Most of the pre-buffs had worn off, but thankfully at this point, the amp damage was doing enough to be able to help slowly knock down his health. Once it came down to Mephisto, I ended up taking him out of the building around the center of town, moved him to the top left corner of the map, and eventually dragged him down towards the portal. This gave me a big open space to be able to howl minions away, but still be close to the portal in case we need to go back into town. Just like with Lilith, his physical resistance is lower than that of both Bale and Diablo, so with her buffed up and with all the rejuves that we could have, it became just a waiting game. And my priorities were watching my own health and preferably not having it go past halfway to be one-shotted, but also scatter minions around her in hopes that she stays focused solely on Mephisto until he dies. Luckily, she stayed just out of the path of the charged bolts and was seldom targeted by Mephisto, and even then, she never was in real danger. Thankfully, Mephisto was so hyper-focused on me, when I switched to using Brand, he only attacked her once, then came back to attacking me, and could help get the amp damage to proc one last time to help give her the extra boost needed to kill the last Primeval, and drop her much-earned torch. I honestly was very surprised with how well this worked, especially against Mephisto, who I was expecting a lot closer of a fight. Surprisingly, all the fights were quite smooth. This is honestly much more of a satisfying run than the other two, especially because of the fact that she is a ranged character, meaning that her crushing blow is going to be half effectiveness as you would expect from the Act 2 and the Act 5 mercenary. She also has her native skills, which are not going to be as helpful for this type of run, and the fact that she was a ranged character and she liked to stay at a distance, it made some of the Ubers start to focus solely on her, especially Bale, which led to having an hour of just failure after failure after failure, where if she would just stay put and fight him the entire time, this whole run could have took less than an hour. However, this is actually the second run attempt that I did with this concept. The first one I had absolutely no idea what I was doing and I was just trying to rush it, which led to me taking 4 hours to be able to complete it. This was my bow. Notice what's wrong with it? I unfortunately didn't until after the run. And this was my inventory. The bow can be forgiven compared to this. But still, did it twice now. But the first one's Mephisto kill was so much better and as clutch as it gets. I literally used the last of my rejus and it came down to the wire. Like Gohan versus Cell. And I'm Goku trying to amp her up to take her chance.
Release it, Gohan! Release everything! Remember all the pain he's caused, the people he's hurt. Now make that your power! Say goodbye!
And finally, at the last moment, he went down just before my health was completely gone. Now, one of the reasons that this run took as long as it did is I didn't want to have, throughout the video, her going into fight the Ubers, start to chunk out their health, she ends up dying, go back into town to be able to revive her, rebuff her, rejoin the fight, and start to slowly just whittle down their health a little bit, her end up dying, and just continue the process over and over again. I wanted to show the full fight of each Uber from having full health all the way to their death to show how powerful she really was, and how long it would take. When she died, I stayed in Tristram to wait for them to regain their health, dragged them to where they could be isolated from the other Ubers, then revived her, pre-buffed her, and then tried again from the top. I didn't want constant cuts from their health slowly going down. I wanted each fight in one cut. Something that Ben C mentioned about not liking the speed ups with the Act 2 mercenary, but just wanting to see the entire fight. Plus, it does make it easier to edit too. But all in all, this was a really fun concept to be able to test out, and I'm certain that there's better ways to be able to have this concept go through the minis and Uber Tristram to be able to get the torch. With that said, the Act 5 mercenary has been able to solo the Ubers, the Act 2 mercenary has been able to solo the Ubers, and with this video coming to its conclusion, that adds the Act 1 mercenary to the list of the mercenaries that have been able to solo the Ubers, which I already thought was questionable enough concept as it was, but looking into the future, there are certain things in this game that seem impossible to do, and that has to be crossing the line. I do have some ideas to be able to have him go through the same kind of process. Unfortunately, nothing that just jumps out as being easy or effective. But if you guys want me to go ahead and try out the concept, please let me know down in the comment section below. And also, I want you guys to go ahead before I even do it, go ahead and leave what you guys would do as far as the gear choices you would give him, the gear specifically that you would have, what character you would use you use a barbarian or would you switch it up to something else? Also, what skills would you be using? Just go ahead and leave your thoughts on everything down to the nitty-gritty details down in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys what you guys would do if you were to try a concept like this. I would love to be able to know if anybody actually has the secret to being able to make this happen. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, this was something that was really fun to be able to experiment with, to be able to see if it was possible in this game. And thankfully, she was able to get the job done. Granted, she is at quite a disadvantage when it comes to Crushing Blow not being as effective as the other two mercenaries, the Act 2 and the Act 5 mercenary. However, she is able to get it done in the long run, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the process from start to finish. If you guys like this kind of content and want to see more, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification to be notified whenever a new video comes out.
Come on. Come on. Come on, then. There you are. There you are.
And if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by leaving a like. It really is appreciated to be able to show that more videos like this need to be done in the future, as well as to be able to help this video get out to as many people as possible. Other than that, hope you guys are all staying safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.
You accidentally translated them backwards. Have it be English to French. Oh, let's see.
Bag 110. Sac un 10 bonheur.
I thought it was a penis joke. It's funnier. Oh my god, hold on.
Sac un 10 bonheur. Sac un 10 bonheur.
I hope that comes through. I don't know if OBS is...
Sac un 10 bonheur.
Oh god. What a stupid thing that is. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you. Nothing brings me more joy than this kind of...
Sac un 10 bonheur.
I'm gonna leave that up. I'll do that all night. I just think it's funny because it's so serious. It takes it with such... It's not a joke. It's just so bad. Oh god. Weighing you down. Also, hold on real quick. We got a switch coming in. Pick my most beautiful side. English to Dutch. Okay. Oh my god. Here we go. Dutch.
Kies mijn mooiste kant.
That's a bit... I don't feel good about replaying that one. That's a little bit...
Kies mijn mooiste kant.
Oh shit. Oh my god, I'm gonna get demonetized. You're gonna destroy me. Holy shit. Alright, I can't play that one again. That's a... I shouldn't have played it. I should not have played that one. That's gonna be... YouTube just... Their heads just turned.